They say a quiet neighborhood is good for your blood pressure, but mine spiked the second I saw my mail torn up across the lawn like someone confetti bombed my life. My daughter's card ripped clean down the middle, a benefits check shredded to ribbons, even a letter from an old army buddy fluttering against the sprinkler like it was trying to crawl back into an envelope. And yeah, that happened, and the only person who'd ever crossed that line was the queen of our HOA, Valerie Kent, who smiles like a realtor's billboard and swings rules like a weapon. So I did what any half-sane 58-year-old war vet with a backbone would do. I picked up the pieces, tucked the check stubs into my pocket, and walked straight toward the problem. Let me back up a sec. I'm Daniel Brooks. I've seen things I don't tell people unless we're sitting on a porch at 2 in the morning with bad coffee and too much honesty. And the one thing service brands into you is routine mail at noon, flag at dawn, lawn on Saturdays. And Valerie never liked any of that. Not the flag, not the metal plaque with my unit crest. Not the way I said hello to everybody, like we still lived in a place where neighbors knew each other's dogs by name. Devalues the aesthetic, she'd say, like dignity was lawn clutter. So I crossed the street, heart-thumping, steady training, trying to keep the fuse from burning too fast. And there she is, on her front steps, arms folded, chin up, watching me like I'm the one on her lawn with scissors, and I say, steady as I can, "Valerie, what did you do to my mail?" And she gives me that laugh that doesn't reach the eyes. "Oh, Daniel, you and your stories. Maybe if you followed our standards, you wouldn't invite drama." And I felt that old heat rise, the kind that says, "Don't you dare." And I kept my voice calm, because calm is a blade. You don't touch what isn't yours. And right then, a patrol car turns the corner, lights already going like the scene had been booked in advance. Officer Collins steps out, square shoulders, professional, and Valerie's voice tilts into this breathy concern. "Officer, he's been harassing me. He causes scenes. He won't comply." And I'm standing there with shredded letters in my hand like exhibits, A through Z, trying to get 2 sentences out, but Collins is all procedure and posture. "Sir, hands where I can see them," and I'm cuffed before the words. "That's a federal offense. Make it past my teeth." You know what I mean? And as the door shuts on the cruiser, I catch Valerie's face in the side mirror, all smug satisfaction, except for one little flicker, a stutter in her eyes, like sudden static on a clean radio. The station's cold in the way institutions get when they've worked too hard to be neutral. Fluorescent hum, stale coffee, holding cell, big enough for my knees and a bruise and across the bars. This scruffy guy with a tired grin says, "You okay, man?" Voice like gravel. "Name's Marcus." And he adds the line, "I hate that I understood. In here, it's not right or wrong. It's who writes the rules, which stings because it's true until it isn't, until somebody decides to change the author." They haul me to a gray room with a wobble table where truths go to get ironed flat, and Collins reads the lines disturbing the peace harassment. And I lay out mine, the flag complaints, the plaque, the petty letters, the torn mail, my daughter's card, my benefits check. And he says, "Do you have proof?" And I say, "Not in my hands, but I know what she did." And his eyes flick down to his notes. And something about the way he exhales tells me he's not totally bought in on Valerie's performance. But procedure is a river, and he's standing in it. Back in the cell, I'm not alone for long. My daughter Lily shows up with red-rimmed eyes and a hug that makes the cuffs feel 3 sizes too tight. "Dad, I'm so sorry I didn't know." And behind her steps Nate Walker, an old friend from the service shoulders, like a door-frame voice that always lands on solid ground. We're not letting this stand. And just like that, the fog lifts a little because allies change the weather, and we start sketching a plan across a cheap plastic table. Neighbors who've been burned by Valerie, a paper trail at the HOA office, a friend Nate has at the courthouse records desk who owes him a favor. Facts first, fury later. When visiting time ends, the door opens again, and in slips a woman I know only by face from a few blocks over. Slate coat hair pulled back like she's about to argue a case. Dana Morales turns out she works in the city attorney's office. Civil division, and she says it like she's handing me a rope. Daniel, I've watched Valerie bend bylaws into boomerangs for years. I've got neighbors willing to talk, and if we move fast, we can pull her mask off before she cements the story that you're the problem, and I ask the only question that matters. How? And she leans in, voice low. We document everything we file, and we call in one person. Valerie forgot existed the Postal Inspection Service, and that's the moment the air changes. Because now we're not just mad, we're right and pointed. Night crawls, and just when I think time has wrapped itself around the bars, the twist walks in two people in plain suits. One flashes a badge that doesn't belong to this building. United States Postal Inspection Service. The other carries a small evidence case like it's a sleeping dog, and the Inspector Morales, no relation, nods to Collins, who looks very awake suddenly and says, "We've been canvassing the neighborhood after mail theft complaints. Yours included. One of your neighbors installed a motion cam aimed at the cluster boxes after packages went missing today. It caught a resident removing and destroying mail addressed to Mr. Daniel Brooks." And she sets a tablet on the table, taps the screen, and there it is, in clean, unforgiving pixels. Valerie, in her crisp suit, glancing around, rifling through the slot, tearing stuffing pieces into a tote, even pausing to flatten the check, like she was making it easier to shred later. Yeah, that happened. Collins doesn't look at me. First, he looks at the badge because chain of command is a religion, and the inspector says the words that turn the station 10 degrees warmer. Destruction of mail is a federal crime. And then to Collins, "We'll need statements. We'll need you to uncuff Mr. Brooks and book him out. He's the complainant, not the perpetrator." And I let myself breathe for the first time since the lawn looked like the inside of a paper shredder. You know what I mean? They process me out in a slow shuffle that feels like a ceremony for common sense, and Dana meets me at the door with a half smile and a stack of forms. "We're filing an emergency restraining petition and a city complaint for abuse of authority through the HOA. And Nate's already texting the courthouse contact in Lily. Bless that kid has a list of neighbors who reached out when Valerie wasn't listening. Turns out fear is loud until somebody else speaks first." Morning breaks because it always does. And we roll straight into Act 2 of this mess: paper, signatures, affidavits from people who've had their flags challenged, their porch chairs cited, their holiday lights violating neighborhood tone. We gather it all, every petty tyranny, and we hand it to the city and to the inspector. And by late afternoon, there's a knock on Valerie's door that isn't the adoration she ordered. Now here's your side character twist, because life loves those. Marcus, the scruffy guy from the cell, turns out he isn't just some drifter in the wrong place. He's a part-time process server who's been dodged by Valerie for months on another civil matter. And when he heard my story, he connected dots and called a reporter he knew at the local paper who'd been sniffing around HOA abuses. So while the inspector works the federal angle and Dana files the city complaint, there's a journalist across the street with a camera and a question. And Valerie, who loves control but hates light, finds herself on the wrong end of both. The hearing happens fast, too fast, for Valerie's usual dance and emergency session with a county judge for the restraining order and a police liaison present. Collins again, body cam on voice, steady, and the inspector streams the video to the courtroom monitor, and you could feel the room tilt when the judge saw the first tear, the second the deliberate glance around the tote bag, the little satisfied press of paper. And Valerie tries the script. This is taken out of context. "I was cleaning litter. I'm being harassed, but context is a luxury that disappears when the tape rolls on and on." The judge grants the restraining order, bars her from HOA decision-making, pending investigation, and refers the matter to the DA with a comment that lands like a gavel inside the gavel. Mail tampering is not a neighborhood dispute. And on the city side, Dana presents the stack selective enforcement retaliatory citations. Fines not approved by quorum, and the city issues a notice of intent to audit the HOA, which is bureaucratic, for we're about to open all your drawers. You want a cinematic beat? Here it is. The neighborhood gathers that evening under a hot sky that finally remembers its summer, an emergency HOA meeting called by the remaining board members who look like people who woke up in the wrong play, and folks who've been quiet for years step up to the mic one after another. Teachers, a nurse, a retired mechanic, a kid who mowed lawns to pay for community college and got fined for leaving his mower visible for 6 minutes, and they vote first to suspend Valerie, then to remove her pending the investigation. And when the tally hits the majority, the air comes out of the crowd. In one long exhale people didn't know they were holding. Valerie's last act is not a speech, it's a look, sharp, brittle, a mix of disbelief and anger, because power borrowed from fear never prepares you for what it feels like when fear leaves the room. She walks out flanked by 2 quiet county investigators. Nothing dramatic. Just a firm hand on an elbow and a door that doesn't close quite as gently as she planned. Endings in real life aren't fireworks. They're quieter. They're porch steps and a flag that goes up at dawn without anyone writing you a ticket for the wind direction. They're Lily sitting beside me with a cup of coffee. We both pretend tastes good. Nate leaning on the railing telling me I did all right, and Dana on the sidewalk with a stack of copies, because paper is how you keep truth from getting rewritten by a meeting that never happened. But if I'm honest and I try to be even when it stings, there's a little open door in my head now, a question that hangs in the air, like the last note of a song. Because removing Valerie doesn't fix every neighbor who stayed quiet too long. It doesn't erase every unfair fine or the way people stopped waving, because waving might be interpreted as taking sides. And it doesn't answer the bigger thing. We never talk about out loud whether we built these little kingdoms with rules to keep us safe or to make us small. You know what I mean? So here's where I leave it with you. The mail got torn. The cuffs clicked, the tape rolled, the truth stood up, and we finished the day with a vote that said people matter more than a page in a binder. I'll take that win and sleep on it like a man who earned his pillow. But tomorrow the neighborhood has to decide what kind of place it wants to be when nobody's watching, when there isn't a badge or a camera or a court order to set the tone, and that's the part that's on all of us. If you were me, if you were any of us, what's justice look like here? What's fair? What's too far? Where's the line between community standards and plain old control? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you stand on HOAs, on power, on neighbors who forget how to be neighbors. And if you've got a story like mine, share it, because sunlight changes more than rules ever will.